Hello, NSA Philadelphia. This is Avish Parashar, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a longtime member of NSA and NSA Philadelphia, past chapter president, and now I'm just the guy that they keep asking to do stuff because I'm too nice to say no. So what I'm here doing today is I'm really excited about our May meeting. It's going to be on Friday, May 23rd, and our speaker that day is one of my really good friends. I've known Robert for, gosh, I don't know, like 6, 7 years now. We go back, maybe even longer. I met him through NSA, and he's a CSP, which is Certified Speaking Professional. I've seen him do programs for chapters and national multiple times, and even though I've seen it multiple times, and I can pick up the phone and ask him any question I want because we're friends, I still make a point to go see him because the content is always that great. So let me introduce to you Robert Bradford, CSP. Hello, Robert.
Hello, Avish. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward both to seeing you personally, but also to hearing your program because I know you're always changing it up and adding new things. So, as you probably figured out, because I told you before we started, the point of this call, the point of this video, is just to entice people who might be on the fence about whether to come to this meeting. There are people out there sitting there thinking, well, it's a Friday. It's the Friday right before Memorial Day. Who's this Robert Bradford guy? He's not a New York Times bestselling author. Why should I bother coming? So we're going to give people a few nuggets of advice from you to show just how brilliant your wisdom can be, and also to entice them and say, hey, look, here's what you're going to get out of it. So now, this might be a dangerous question to start with because you might not know the answer, but do you have an idea and an overview? What is the purpose of your chapter program? What are you going to share with us that's going to make us say, wow, that was awesome?
Well, I'll give you two answers. The first is, it's a different chapter program than I've done before, but every time I do a chapter program, I'm really trying to get the speakers in the audience to try and think about their speaking business a little bit differently in a way that positions them better to be more successful in a way that only they can do. And that's what I want to do for you. The other thing that's really important, though, this chapter program, I've been working up some new material about how you can sell the big ticket gigs just after you speak. So somebody talked to me about this recently. Said, Robert, why do you seem not to care about your speaking fee that much? And the reason is if the audience is right for me, I know I'm probably going to get between 5 and 10 times my speaking fee for the big ticket programs I sell at the event, and that's more important to me in the long run than the speaking fee. The speaking fee is nice. I like to get good speaking fees, but what I'm really jazzed up about is that I can create an ongoing engagement with some of the people in the audience.
All right, well, that sounds awesome. I'm sure everyone here would be really interested in learning as much as possible about that. So, I realized that we kind of jumped in and started asking about the program, but I jokingly said, people are like, oh, who is this Robert Bradford guy? And people may not know, but if they know a little bit about you, it's actually pretty impressive. So so you don't have to brag about yourself. Let me do your favorite activity, which is talk about you. And then you can fill in some of the gaps that I may have missed that not just about bragging, but are relevant to people who might be thinking about coming. So Robert is a professional speaker, but much more than that. I doubt he would call himself a professional speaker. He's basically a strategic planning expert. He has the #1 best-selling book on Amazon on strategic planning. It's called Simplified Strategic Planning, and he not only speaks at conferences and events, but as he just mentioned, he turns those into relationships where he books big ticket dollar programs where he goes in and works really deep with a client. So, Robert, that's kind of how I see your business. Is there something I missed, something you want to clarify, anything else you think people should know?
No, that's pretty much it. I always tell people a third of my business is giving speeches at conferences like many of you do. About a third of my business, I produce public programs, so I do seminars. And then about a third of my business is actually diving in deep with a few companies every year. And that's what I do.
Okay. Well, then I just got a few questions because obviously we want people to get a little bit of info here, but the whole point here is to get them. So while we could talk for hours, we're just going to cover a few quick things. So #1, you kind of mentioned this already, but you've definitely found, and I've found, and I apply this even to myself, so I'm looking forward to changing my mindset when I come, but speakers really are obsessed with a speaking fee, with what their fee is and getting it. And in your experience, you think that kind of short sells them, right? Can you talk a little about why that is and how they're kind of hurting themselves by focusing just on the speaking fee?
Well, here, to me, the real key is ultimately in the world, when the market works really well, we get paid for the value we create, whatever that is. So when you walk into a room to speak, you have to ask yourself, how much value can I create for each person sitting in a seat in the program that I'm delivering? I always take that a step further, and the reason why I think big ticket programs are important is that when you work much more deeply with an organization, you can deliver much more value than they can get out of a 1-hour speech. And I'm not saying that you have to work with them for 6 months. What I'm saying is if you go and work with them for 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 days, you can transform some aspect of their business that really delivers value. And that's where the fee should really be coming from. It's not from you getting a certain purchase price, but rather from you delivering value that really does something for the client.
Okay, and just to clarify a little bit, when you say big ticket, are you talking 4 figures, high 4, 5 figure, 6 figure? What does big ticket mean for the audience?
I definitely would. I wouldn't even consider it big ticket if it wasn't 5 figures. For me, we're talking about mid 5 figures to low 6 figures is what I normally consider my big ticket program.
Okay, and not to get too in depth into what you charge or anything like that, but when you said it doesn't have to be 6 months, you will oftentimes go in for like a big ticket 7-day engagement. You'll go for 1 week, work really deep, and that's your program, right?
That's my whole thing, and I usually will sell that for something between 5 and 10 times my speaking fee.
Wow, that's just amazing. Okay, and one more question on the truth about speaking fees is that you know a lot of speakers, you've been familiar with the industry. Would you say that obviously there's always outliers and the exceptions, really, really high end people, but would you say the bulk of people are making their money and they're living not just with the speaking fee, but by having these big ticket and follow-up programs and other services, so it's not just the fee?
I'll go a step farther and say it is nearly impossible to make a good living just on speaking fees. I think there are people who attempt it, who do okay with it, but to get up to the next level and actually be comfortable with your lifestyle, I think you've got to have something else you bring to the table in terms of value that people can purchase once they've seen you and know, hey, Avish Parashar, he's a good guy. I like listening to him. His material is useful to me. Once they do that, you've got something that you cannot purchase any other way, which is credibility and a connection to that audience member.
All right. Well, I'm sure everyone is interested in wanting me to ask you, well, how do we do that? And I'm not going to ask that question because that's what you're going to talk about on Friday the 23rd.
That's right. You have to come on the 23rd.
Okay. How about let's give them one nugget. Because obviously, as you said, they see you speak and then you turn that into a big ticket. You're not necessarily going to talk about how do you go in cold and get a big ticket item, big ticket program. So how about like one tip? Or what is one thing you see speakers doing wrong when it comes to getting or not getting spin-off business from their speaking gigs?
I think the biggest thing most speakers do wrong is they don't think about what are the primal urges that the people in the audience feel when they're excited about hearing you speak. And that's really important because if, for example, Avish, when someone hears you speak, they think, oh my gosh, Avish Parashar is such a funny guy. He knows how to do something so brilliant, and he makes it look easy, but I know it's got to be difficult. So the thing that's in their mind is, how can I learn how to do that? And if you just and it doesn't have to be a big sell, just very subtly in your program, let slip that this is something that you teach people how to do. You have a whole program for that. People will mob you after the program. They'll hand you their card and say, please contact me about doing this program in my company.
So you don't have to do a hard sell. It's not like in the middle of your presentation you stop and say, look, if you want to learn to do what I do, come talk to me afterwards. You're saying you can just kind of subtly weave it in where people will essentially come to you for spin-off business without you having to do the hard sell?
Absolutely. In fact, I would take that a step further and say it works worse if you sell from the platform. The way to do it is to really present that it is A, something you do, and B, here are some stories about how it works and why it works. So the more they understand about how and why it works, the more excited they're going to be about buying it, and they're going to have to pull it out of you, and it's a much easier sale if they have to pull it out of you than if you're pushing it in their face.
Wow. Hey, okay, so a little bit off script here. I know you don't do speaker coaching, but we just talked about a story that I think it exemplifies this. I think because and I think when people hear this, they'll be like, "Holy cow, we need to learn how to do this." So the story it was actually just at an NSA chapter, and you were trying to say no, but because of what you did, could you just kind of share that story real quick?
Yeah, this woman from the audience just came up to me during the break and said, "You're going to coach me," and I said, "Well, that's something I don't sell actually." And she said, "Robert, what would it take?" And I said, "You just need to write me a really big ticket." And she's actually incredibly successsly. She owns a very large construction firm. So she said, "Well, would this check be big enough?" And by golly, it was. I've been coaching her now for about 2 months. She's a good speaker. She's done very well. And she did her first public speech about 2 weeks ago now. And she just talked to me this weekend and said she started booking gigs at a fee that's very, very nice.
Wow. And I think that's that was an NSA group, but I think that's the same type of thing you think can happen speaking to any audience. I mean, you're trying to turn it down, you're saying no, and then you say, well, you have to pay me a lot, just by simply delivering great value and then laying the groundwork within the speech.
Yeah, and okay. One key thing to think about is if you set things up so that in every audience you speak to, there are 1 or 2 people who would and could write you the check that you want. They will be there. You just have to position your speech that way.
Okay, and I'm assuming you're going to talk more about that in your program, but how to do that?
Not only will I talk about it, but I will demonstrate how to think it through with some of the members of your chapter. We'll bring them up on stage like I did last time, and we'll work through some of their stuff and see if we can figure out exactly the kinds of things that they should be pushing for.
Wow. Okay, that bears repeating for people who might have missed it. So Robert, what he likes to do in his programs is not just stand up there and talk the whole time, but he'll bring people up, volunteers, and brainstorm with them, put them on a hot seat, ask them questions, help them figure out. So if you're coming to this meeting, as you should, you might be one of those people who not only learns, but actually gets Robert to work you over right there and help you position. So amazing.
And I think working them over is the right way to think about it.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of courage. You got to be willing to have Robert tell you, well, here's what you're doing. Here's why what you're doing is not going to work. But then he'll tell you, here's what to do that will work. And that's, if you're really serious about being successful, that's what you want to do. Okay. Couple more quick questions. One, so you mentioned this 5 to 10 times your fee. We talked about 10 times your fee. So, I mean, is that realistic? Because, I mean, some of us, if you have a good fee, I mean, some of us some people starting out might be charging high 3 figures or very low 4 figures, or like 10 times. But if you've got a good speaking fee, I mean, are you honestly saying that using some of your techniques that we're going to be able to make 10 times our speaking fee?
Absolutely. I don't know anyone who's set out to do this that I've, talked to about, here's how you do it, that has failed to come up with something like that. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, and so the way to do that, I think you've already mentioned, is kind of taking what you've done and then going deeper, getting them in that moment where they're excited about what you do, laying the groundwork, and then following up with a big ticket where you go deeper. How about for people who are people like myself, but we don't need to use me as an example because I feel like we use that a lot, but people who are maybe humorous. A lot of people start out in this industry wanting to be more motivational, inspirational, as you call Fluffy Bunny, which for those of you who are, don't be afraid. Robert's very nice. He's not going to insult you. But, that's what draws a lot of people to this business is I want to help people. I want to motivate. I want to inspire. And it sounds like the 10 times your speaking fee seems to be the person like the sales trainer. Like, I'm going to go in and get, you're going to pay me a speaking fee, but I'm going to make 10 times that because I'm going to work on your sales or your marketing. And is it possible to make 10 times your speaking fee if you have a softer topic?
Absolutely. And the key is this. It's easier for sales trainers because they deliver a value that is very directly correlated with money. So if you go to someone and say, hey, you want to make more, you want to bring up your sales by $1 million next year, people say, yeah. I say, would you pay me, $100,000 to do that? Most people would say, yeah, sure. That seems like a pretty good trade-off.
Yeah.
When you do something like motivational, you have to sort of dig a little deeper into what is the underlying value And is there a way to make that concrete so that the person who's buying from you says, when I book someone, like for example yourself, when I bring Avish into my organization, he's going to help my people learn to be funnier, and they're going to learn to be quicker on their feet. And that is a value that is tremendously high for some organizations. And I know, from your experience, you're seeing, for example, you're doing this with lawyers or maybe people in sales. That works very well because they understand that there's a value to them.
Okay, so a lot of it is taking that soft topic, that fluffy topic, and finding what the underlying value is.
Yeah, so what I try to do, and one of the things I'm going to try to do with a couple of members during the program, is actually work out how can we put this in a box and put a bow on it and say to a client or a prospective client, here is the exact thing that you want to buy, and I've wrapped it up for you. When you pay me for this thing, this is what you're going to get.
All right, well, I'm looking forward, even on a personal level, just learning more about that. All right, final question, Robert. I know we talked about how you're supposed to subtly lay groundwork, which I think we've done, but now's the time for the direct sale. The meeting's coming up. It's on May 23rd, Friday. I think registration starts at 8. Event starts at, you start at 9. So, there's still people, even after all this great information, sitting there thinking, well, I don't know if this is going to help my business. I don't know if I should take the time. It's a vacation weekend. Can you give us 3 reasons why people don't want to miss this meeting? 3 reasons here's 3 reasons why you have to make sure to attend this meeting.
Well, first of all, I think they can't afford not to attend this meeting. What they're going to learn is going to so dramatically improve their speaking business. If you don't come to this meeting, you're going to be missing out on something that a lot of your fellow speakers in the Philadelphia chapter are definitely going to be making some money on in the next year, and you'd like to get a piece of that for yourself.
Awesome.
The second thing is that what I'm going to be doing in the program is not something you can usually pick up in a book. There isn't a video out there on this. We are going to have an experience that will be very difficult to replicate, where I will be bringing you through the thought processes and helping you develop a new way of thinking about your speaking business that will help you make a lot of money. And thirdly, everybody's going to have a shot at actually getting up in the hot seat, and I'll actually work people over. And as you all know, that's worth a lot to people, that there will be tremendous benefit for those people. And there will be benefit for people who watch, because you'll see exactly how we pick these things apart and turn an ordinary speaking business into one that has a big ticket program that you can sell in addition to your speaking. And it will not just make more money for you, but it will also make your speaking better, because you'll be able to tell stories about your speaking and about the work that you do with these other clients in your next speech, and that makes you a richer, better speaker.
Well, Robert, sounds awesome. I am looking forward to seeing the program, and most likely completely changing my business after I see you speak on the 23rd. So once again, everyone go to nsaphiladelphia.com or maybe nsaphiladelphia.org. I forget, it's not right in front of me. But go to NSA Philadelphia. Sign up for the meeting now. It's Friday, May 23rd. You don't want to miss this. It's one of the best programs. And Robert is a highly sought-after NSA chapter speaker. Everyone, once he speaks at one chapter, they start recommending him. So you've spoken to what, like 10, 15 chapters and national conferences?
15 chapters now, yeah.
Yeah, plus a national conferences. So
back from speaking at the Asian Professional Speakers Convention in Singapore.
Yeah, so his program is so sought after that they flew him out around the country to go deliver this program in Singapore. So Robert, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing you, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you watching this on the 23rd.